Koutou, ko Paul Roseman toko ingoa. I'm the Chief Executive of Health Accelerator, and before we rip into the rest of the session, I'll just open us with a short karakia. So, tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū te Māori ora. Ki te katoa, humi e, hui e, tā ki e. All right, so welcome along, everybody. This is the third in our series of webinars around how to get the most out of Heidi, the AI scribe. These are brought to you jointly by Health Accelerator and Collaborative Aotearoa, along with Hendrix Health, who are the implementation partner for Heidi in New Zealand. So we've got a couple of guests along today to speak. But at the outset, just to make sure everybody knows, there is, of course, a good deal on buying Heidi, which you can access through either the Collaborative Aotearoa website or the Health Accelerator website. So if you don't currently use Heidi and you've been watching a couple of the webinars or you're inspired by this one and you want to rip into having a go at it yourself, please feel free to sign up through either of those websites. So this afternoon, we've got a couple of short presentations. Kololo Halfano is from Hendrix, and he is going to talk to you a little bit about some added value things that you can do, potentially using, turning on some different languages, which can help with the way Heidi hears messages from people where English is not their first language. And then Karl, Dr. Karl Cole from Papatoetoe, is going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that he uses Heidi, and in particular focusing on how he uses it to support providing information for patients at the end of the consultation to help them when they've left the consult room. So without any further ado, if you do have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A session, and as we get to the end of this, we'll do a few of those questions, as many as we can fit in the time available, and get you some great answers from our guests. So otherwise, Kololo, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul, and nice to meet you all. I want to firstly acknowledge all those that have participated in bringing this to about with the session today. I want to acknowledge Dr. Karl Cole, one of the biggest super users of Heidi, and has used it for since a couple of years ago. So it's really good to get that insight and that perspective from the clinician themselves. So what I wanted to do is really firstly go back to the whakapapa of these webinar sessions. For those that came to webinar 1, we had talked about how to transcribe and dictate a note. Last session, we had talked about how to go beyond the consult and to convert that primary note into secondary documents. What I want to do today is really think about understanding some of the features within Heidi that can unlock this equitable power, especially when it comes to language, both from an input perspective as well as an output perspective. I'm looking at the attendees right now, and I see a few of us people here who I know speak multiple languages, and will have patients that come in to their consult rooms speaking their native tongue. What I want to do right now is actually just quickly share with you Heidi, and for those that even are super users of Heidi, for those that haven't used Heidi before, I think what I want to show you in this demo is where the configuration is and being able to unlock this language power. Okay. On the front face of the notes, of course, right at the top of the screen, you will see that there are certain languages that I've toggled on, such as English and Te Reo Māori, and you will see with the arrow that it will convert it into an English clinical note. But how do I go and configure this as my defaults? Well, if I go into settings, just on the left panel here, in settings, under default section, there is a language and spelling component right at the top. So just know that Heidi can pick up to 110 languages. In fact, what you can do is select up to 3 languages that allow Heidi to pick up experience, having worked with clinicians all over the motu, is by default to turn on English and Te Reo Māori as your main defaults. Why do I suggest that? Well, in Aotearoa, we tend to remix our language a lot. Kia ora, ke te pehea koe, I'm here with my mokopuna, right? So how do we configure Heidi to be able to capture how we kōrero and tala noa in the context of how we do it in Aotearoa? In fact, I have worked closely with Heidi to really push for some of these languages that we need, especially with how diverse our motu is, or our country is. For example, there's Samoan, there is Tongan, right? We have some people here that speak Chinese. I want to give you an example. I had gone to a clinic in Māngere, and this clinic had a couple of Tongan GPs, and I wanted to really stress test this out. And had two Tongan GPs do a mock consult in their native tongue. And as nervous as I was seeing this, it was actually quite beautiful in seeing that this note had generated a beautiful English note. And I made sure that these Tongan GPs were able to check their notes, which I think is a fundamental part to any AI generated output, is checking your notes. And they were quite surprised in its being able to pick up the language. What I wanted to really emphasize here, Tefano, is just knowing that we have the ability to speak our native tongue if your patients walk in speaking that tongue as well. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I will pass now the time to Dr. Karl.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I have to admit that I've been so head down, right, elbows deep in everything that I have took about 3 months my eye off the ball, and Heidi had gone down and changed a whole lot of things. So I feel like I'm learning some stuff, and thank you for that, because I hadn't realised that it happened. And was asking for that about 6 months ago, and whoa, there it goes. So amazing, really amazing. So while I am coming into, I understand there's been a lot about the basics of Heidi, and assuming people have used it and everything. So I was asked to do what I think would be the customization and go over what I've done. Quite scary to think I've done 15,000 use cases in the last 2.5 years. I was using other scribes. I was using even looking at how safe we could make it to use other kind of local scribes. But we soon realized, of my experience, that you need to have partners who are right beside all these things like this. Because if we're trying to do it ourselves, and Health and Z try to make their own one, you get sidetracked, you do other things, you don't do anything really well, and you don't have the focus to design what the users want. And that's what I think I feel validated. Heidi have just come so far compared to the last 2 years. What I think people aren't doing, though, is they're not looking at their microphone enough. And again, I was just telling the panelists, I grew up in a household, my dad was a plumber, and I feel a bit embarrassed to sort of be looking under the covers and looking at things, because we lived in a house with a leaky roof and bad spouting all the time, because he's never going to pay someone else to come and sort out. And I've realised I've been using a microphone, that's unidirectional, and it's not omnidirectional. I thought it was. So it's been missing some when people on the other side, we have a big family conference, it hasn't been doing. So what I recommend to do, what I hadn't done, I had to check, is to look at your transcript, do some tests, walk around the room, get people there, and just make sure your microphone's picking up people where they normally sit, and it's not missing people. And you can do that by recording a normal recording in Windows, and hearing it back, and you hear the voice is quite different. And if we've got a faint voice in the background in you, it's going to struggle a lot. You're asking it to do more than it should. And if you get a good microphone, it makes all the difference. And then you can check that by making sure the transcription is what you're saying. Just say the quick brown fox jumped over lady's dog, all sorts of ways. So I won't go into that. There's a lot there, but really worth doing if you're going to use it regularly. And especially like me, when we often have 3 or 4 people in the console. The training hurdles is just finding the time. It's good to go through and iterate, and don't think you're going to do it all at once. It's too overpowering. And what I have realized is I've finally, through little small steps, like all good agile design, goes you through the key principles, coming back and you find little things. One big step was the nurses told me, that like a lot of people experience, they actually understand my notes now, they make more sense. But they wanted to know what the next step, what was the patient meant to do? Because despite us trying our best to do this is what you do that, they still come out a little bit confused what that. And I then consolidated and really worked on a principle of having a patient instruction summary that was a really easy to understand what we agreed to and what they were meant to do, the next steps. And that's been the most popular template I've put online for Heidi to download from. And I'm going to go through how people do that. But I want to see more New Zealand GPs up there, because unfortunately the specialists are putting more templates on than us. And I think we should get a bit of competition going on. We should be doing better. And I'll go through what they are there. So here's the template I've been doing, and when you go through, I'll show live soon the choice of templates and how easy it is to design your own ones. And don't be scared about it. You do not need to be a programmer, and you can have some fun with it, like I'm going to show in a minute. Here's what I was saying. Does anyone, we haven't worked out where Michael works.
Yes, Michael is a general practitioner at Silverdale Medical Centre, north of Auckland.
Silverdale. So shout out to Michael. He's still up there. Last time I looked at there, he's got over 100, I think. So I'll log in here now. No. Oops. It was working. You're all seeing my Heidi now, I hope. I hate it when the Teams thing gets in the way of your tabs. There you go. So I was just trying to check that out. I didn't know that. Thank you. So I was just trying to show the language. I'll do it later. So I have noticed that one of the more frustrating things is Māori often comes up as Murray, and it's never quite there. So I'll be trying that for sure. In the template library, when you pay, you get the templates. This is where I'd say it's a little embarrassing. I don't think these are 100%. I've been trying different things. There's a whole lot you can make favorites, and there's a lot I've been trying. But what you go into is into the community and browse. Look under different locations, what's popular. For example, you can choose family medicine specialist there, choose the location around the world, and just try these. Now, I've got that one. That is very good. And it's really good when you know the consult has actually had a whole lot of problems and you want to be much more record. I've been playing with one that's going to be ACC, and I've been using basically the issue one. So I haven't made an ACC. So I've got a detailed one when I know it's an ACC. I can see they're going to want their notes. This produces quite a long note focused on what ACC would want to hear. But then I've been using a lot my one, which is sort of popular. I'm not the highest up there. Only one in New Zealand, so there you go. I'm the highest. Is a concise summary note. After seeing the notes getting really long and people just trying to record everything, and that would be probably 80% of my consults, and then I have a very detailed message to the patient. And I've got a couple others I've been trying to work on. This one's although I know this is a kind of very focused consult, but basically this one does a lot of them. And if you go into GP, which I'm going to ask Heidi to change because I don't know why they put it under family medicine, because under general practitioner across the world, there's lots more. So Michael's there up to 500 now. That's from 6 months ago is 200 downloads, but there's a lot of other ones that could be right relevant to us. But if we do this, don't have a specialty. I think we select it somehow. Unfortunately, we're still not up there. Psychologists, orthopedic surgeons, pediatric psychologists. Come on, GPs, where are we? What are we doing? There. So she knocked me off my perch. Where is all the others? And this is the power. When you ever use open source software, I use a lot and everything else. This is the superpower we have as a network to start designing clinic letters which are there. So I'll just go back to ones I have been using. For example, I really enjoyed today. I've asked this lady here with the family that come in. I thought I'd try a Dr. Zeus one. So this lady's had a sore throat for 2 months, seen another. Here's my concise note where I've put the instructions and the template to be no more than 70 words, and to use a list of approved abbreviations. And the next thing is to write a patient instructions. Now, if I want to change that one to, here it is here, whoops, the Zeus. Do this live. The patient instructions side was in the theme of Dr. Zeus. I thought it was there. So that was to a 12-year-old was quite a good thing to go away and print off. So I could print this off here, and then the patient message now is in Doctor's. Anyone can read that. Dr. Use poem. On a serious note, there's a lot of other things that I found it very useful for, is people can get their patient instructions cut and paste, and that goes to their portal, or print off when they don't use the notes. So this lady who asked permission this morning when I was morning clinic, I hope everyone's read the Dr. Zeus poem. There you go. They found it hilarious. This is the more standard that she's come in with probably a hip sudden to go. She's had both knees replaced 8 years ago. but they've got really bad this winter because she's living in a shed now. She's lost a job. She's not things, and she's done really well for diabetes because she's got down from HbA1c of 100 to 90 down to 42 by changing her diet and not cooking for herself with the place she's at. But she's now really getting quite sore and not able to exercise, and she's wanting to get reviewed for that. Made good sense, and she's eligible for a GPL. She's deaf as well. Really was struggling to hear me. I had to repeat things a bit. So it was very good. And she smiled, the biggest smile I had when I printed off this patient instructions. Just simple, basic stuff like that on what the plan is, what we're going to do from here. It was able to be printed off and given to her because she's got no access to email in her shed. So this is what I mean by iterative design. If you go into the template library, there's a lot to start off with. And if you want to go, and it's how I started, no special training needed, go edit something. Here's the GP note from there. That becomes yours. This is where you edit. There's nothing more special than this. This is the real basics of it. There are good instructions when you start a new one, where basically that's like we used to do with medtech and templates, where you had a pre-templated letters and would insert them for off work and everything. Is kind of in that kind of coding level. This is the title that will come in, and this is the instructions you're telling the AI to do. Right? That simple. So another one is my concise one is nothing more sophisticated. You're welcome to download it. That's what comes up, says is always written, and then in the square brackets is what to do. And then I use Healthify as a resource. That's one there. It's the standard instructions, and I think I've got there's the one I use. That's the one I use most of the time, and that's been shared live. It's a bit more thought out. What I did is actually use ChatGPT to say, show me a list of all common abbreviations to make the note even shorter. So to summarize the entire consult, this is literally like you're telling someone very clear instructions like that. And then at the end, after the abbreviations it used, it was patient message, then space. I could put space if I wanted there. Save that now. That's how you edit it. Okay, and then that's the instructions. And it is just fiddling with those instructions. And then when you're in the sessions, what I've found I've used a few times is, this one here, I needed to make a much more thorough standard letter there, so I can go to a family medicine specialist and it's much more thorough because it's a new patient for new headache, and it goes through a lot more what's going on there rather than a concise one which is more appropriate for follow-up. Microphones that play with templates, that's all I wanted to cover. Open for questions.
That's awesome. Thank you, Karl. There is a lot to digest in that. I think one of the things that I picked up is, the way that you don't get stuck on a single template, that you move around templates for the circumstances that you're in, and you find it quite easy to move between different templates. Yeah,
I maybe missed that. I was moving fast there, but I guess I'll share that so it's obvious. Here we go again. As I say, 80% of the time I'd use my concise template. So let's go back to this one here, and it's here is when you move behind, and those are the stars that are my favourites. When I can search for the rest. I guess the other thing I forgot to say is I'm doing quite a bit now is I don't go to template as much for letters or letters for referral letters, where I should cut and paste into I put the instructions down here, and I've learned through experience that it can be very, very, very badly spelled vague, like a Google search, but you know what keywords to put in there. Referral to ortho, emphasize my typing's so bad, it's all over the place. The right hip limiting ability, path daily living, and can't walk 100 meters. But I know the transcripts covered it all, and just by doing that, you actually get quite a good basis for a template. And sometimes I've said concise, and I'm sure there'd be ways I could make some. I'm going to experiment there, a document that does that, but it's generic enough that I don't have to have a specific template for every type of referral, but it says just referral. And I can see us using things like write a lab, summarize a lab result. So it's got the date it started and the rest of it from the actual transcript. So you know what's in the transcript, you don't repeat, so you do imagine yourself instructing. So I'm using this, what's this called, Karl? The Heidi, this instruction.
Heidi asks Heidi to do anything.
Yeah, for letters and those things, and it's just making much better referrals and much better letters for housing and etc. like that. And you don't need to emphasize everything about letter needs when it's been gone over in the transcript. You just need to say housing for this reason, emphasize the reasons, and it finds that, and you get very good at just having a very high level instructions. Anyway, from changing the type of templates here, that would make this one concise. So I'll go for that, and it just reruns on your transcript. What I'm finding people, this is a good point, Paul, is people don't see this transcript over here if you don't play with the settings a bit. And that's the bit I was saying when you check your microphone. So we can do it while it's running. Yeah. So now that has generated that, a much brief summary. So I'll go to, this is the transcript. This is what you want to test, because this is the essence. If this is getting it wrong a lot, or you've got people who aren't being picked up, you do want to test this. So you can go back, I'll go a new session, transcript. When I was preparing for this, I did try, I didn't realize you could split it up and show the transcript. It's a setting in there where you can show this transcript going in the background versus the output over here. Often that just defaults to this. So you can set this up or just look at the transcript afterwards and see how accurate it is going. The quick brown fox jumped at a lazy dog. One of the good things that I went to Heidi from previous scribes is it's not very quick at bringing up the dictation straight away, but it's more higher quality because it waits and then does testing. Yeah. So you find it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat at the moment, team. So if anybody has got a question, please feel free to write it in the chat. I guarantee to ask it as long as it's. Oh, here we go. So we've got a question from Jenny. Can Heidi learn the new national criteria for imaging requests in New Zealand so that when you ask it to generate a referral for a hip X-ray, it includes all the relevant criteria? That is a great question.
That's a very good question. I could put that in a template. This is why I think it's really, really the superpower we have as a country against some corporates and other things is to come on there and actually ask those questions, because the guys have got some great answers, but they don't know what questions should be answered, and they're sort of desperately looking for, the old saying is a hammer, and looking for nails everywhere. But that's that slight twist where this template could be made to look for it, or it could be done in some other thing, and it actually would come back and do a check. And I think the next thing like that would then autofill your either referral or national guidelines. If you've covered up in the transcript, you said, oh, you've had this pain for more than 4 weeks, it's last 2 nights, you sort of half remembered them, and it comes up and it says, actually, there's that last of the 5 things, you've got 5, but you've got 4, but not the 5th one, before you even go there. So it's done in the background, or at some point in that process. So if they watched how we do that, they'd realise these opportunities to say, hey, you didn't check, it's been over 4 weeks. I know you have. That'd be excellent. But I don't know, it's not built in yet, but Karl?
Kalolo, I was going to ask, is it possible to feed a body of knowledge here so that the ask Heidi to do anything, you could ask a question like, does this consultation meet the criteria for a hip X-ray in the public system? Would that work?
Yeah, I mean, that is the trajectory of where we want to get to as a technology. At the moment, the current state requires that you need to add it in as context, and just alluding back to Dr. Karl's point too, is you can adjust the templates accordingly. I do expect in the near future that there is a connection to data sets like health pathways that can help us have this type of updated knowledge. But currently right now, if I was to go and ask a particular question here to delve deeper onto a node, it actually extracts it out from what's there in the World Wide Web. But as we know, with open evidence and all these additional kind of features that are coming out, one of the things that Heidi is very mindful of is making sure that the responses that are given when you prompt to ask Heidi to do anything is legit and that it's backed up as well. So to answer the question directly using the context feature, and adjusting the templates is probably the best route at the moment with this type of scenario.
Cool, thank you. Karl, feel free to turn off the transcribing anytime you like on that. On that.
I have.
Oh, great. I was just watching some of the things I was saying coming up. Do we have any other questions out there? Otherwise, I'm aware that it is approaching the time that we were due to end, so I'm really interested to know. It looks like we may do. Oh, yes, we do. Nick asks, do you need to let patients know that you're using Heidi and that their consult will be turned into a transcript, and what happens if they don't consent? Karl, I'm sure you have a routine that you follow with patients and other things that you've got set up around the practice to alert people.
Yeah, so following the guidance years ago in medical protection society, so that it's on the website, it's on the pages, it's on the enrollment, there's posters posted on the wall. Randall doesn't use it, so it's on his office. He doesn't have it. It's on my wall in my room. I just say, I've been using it so long now, people expect it, but new patients, so I got this tool that transcribes, it deletes it all afterwards. We don't keep it, but it makes me have a better note. It makes my grammar better, and we laugh at that, and they generally go, yeah, like last time. So it's been so long, end of the post. I've had 2 people say no. Like one person said, I didn't come here to get recorded. But I said, no, well, yeah, but it's going to be deleted. It helps that. And so we just didn't. And then a couple of others, I'm in South Auckland Papatoa, so I've got a lot of schizophrenic patients who don't want me to ever look at their bloods, and they're very paranoid, so just don't do it. But it's like, I remember when Test Safe came and we went to inform every single person about their bloods being shared with ED, it starts becoming part of the routine. It is there. You shouldn't forget about it. But it's, I do make sure everyone knows. We've got all those posters and the rest to do it.
And if they don't consent, of course, you simply don't turn on the microphone, because
exactly.
you do turn the microphone on and off at every consult.
Here where I'm set up. I've got the screen facing them. There's a microphone. And in my office, I've got one of the, I thought was omnidirectional, but it's actually only one way globes. So it's glowing red. So it's pretty obvious too that they've seen that. So they can see it all. So it's very transparent.
Cool. And Wendy asks, as a non-user so far, I'm interested in seeing the transcript of a language, for example, Te Reo Māori, and the English note. Do you have the ability to do that? Could you do that just quickly, Kololo? Could you do a transcript?
Yeah, so I think just to answer the question directly, if I was to speak the native tongue and have it translated, does the transcript come up in the actual native tongue language? Is that correct?
No, I think what Wendy wants to see is she wants to see the English translation. If you speak Te Reo, that you do get a translation of it.
Okay. What I can do is show you what an output perspective looks like with Heidi. So if I go back,
and just while you're doing that, I've got 2 people who speak Hindi and Filipino in the practice, and I've been using Heidi off and on. And what we agreed is we're still completely 100% responsible for the output, and it does get it wrong with what you said sometimes. So it's kind of I won't use it for Māori. I don't speak nearly good enough, so I won't, because I can't translate very well. But that is an issue. You are responsible that it's been translating correctly.
I agree. I 100% agree. It only makes sense that we need to make sure that any AI generated output, even if you're translating it to a different language, that we understand and that we check before we give it to a patient, for example. Yeah. So just to answer kind of the 2 points that was mentioned around this question, if I was to speak Te Reo Māori, right, in this consult and it was 100% in Reo Māori, the transcript will come out in Reo Māori. But if you don't toggle this on and make sure that this is set up, it will not pick it up correctly, because it's trying to assume that you're speaking English. So just make sure that the language is configured correctly. From an output perspective, it all goes back to prompting, right? So asking Heidi to do anything is translate this document, this explainer, into Te Reo Māori, right? So what Heidi does is it takes the transcript, which is obviously in Te Reo Māori, plus the contextual notes in the note itself, and then translates it into the language at hand, right? So I always make sure that for those that do speak the certain ngangana or the language or the reo, is to double check their notes. So for those that do speak reo Māori, it's just making sure that you look into this. But from the experiences that I've seen working with Hauora Māori providers, with those that speak reo Māori, they're quite impressed with how it comes out. Of course, I'm mindful too that there are nuances of how someone at Waikato Tainui speaks reo Māori versus Kaitahu, right? So it's just a matter of just knowing that this is by default the national way of speaking reo Māori. But it's some of these conversations that I'm having with Heidi around like thinking about the different nuances and how we speak reo Māori around the motu. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you very much. Look, we've gone past the 1 o'clock mark. Oh, we do have a couple more questions. Let's just see what they are. So Karen just quickly notes cultural responsiveness. Besides translating the language, how else does Heidi Health ensure documentation is culturally responsive or meets the cultural needs of patients? Now, I'm not sure that you've got time, but Kololo, I've seen you do this where you've asked for the patient advice to be put in a Māori context for people, and I thought it was quite impressive.
Yes, in fact, I want to acknowledge Dr. Karl in this, because in the early stages when I worked with Heidi, it was my kōrero of Dr. Karl seeing this. So imagine this e te whānau, not just translating a patient explainer in verbatim into te reo Māori, but to prompt to Heidi and say, I want you to write this from a te ao Māori worldview. And I also am in the belief that we're now in this space where we can, go beyond just the clinical judgment and think about the social aspects to a consult, right? How do I have a template that's in te whare tapawhā, right? I've talked to some GPs that actually have a habit in writing out their notes, which I agree with, but how do we go beyond in just the clinical impression and embedding in a bit of te whare tapawhā into the impression as well? So I know some Pasifika providers that are in here. I acknowledge Hawke's Bay, for example, who are trying to test the whanawhale model for seasonal workers from Samoa in the Hawke's Bay. Right? So going beyond just Heidi being able to pick up language, how do we leverage off templates to capture more of the cultural and the Hawara lens within a consult? So to address the point here, we're in a space how where we can start to reimagine workflows and how consult is to happen with the clinician, with the patients.
Yeah, so, I think what I'm realizing is some stuff it does a lot better, and some stuff we still have to be overviewing and supervising that it's got the right direction and it's gone off. Because if it goes in the wrong direction, I'll do that faster, and I'll do something in the right direction, I'll do that faster too. So, like the example where I was making a bit flippantly about Dr. Zeus for a kid, you can have a concise summary note, then you could have the more detailed note, and the EHR's got to keep up with that because we probably want both. I want the summary, detailed note, then we want a patient explainer, and then also chance for them to express what they think, and they can actually have the alter to suit them. And there's evidence that I'm talking it's been most successful is when that explainer is heavily influenced by the type of language used in the transcript, and then the next step, which is a way off, what's in their history inside the HR, what they prefer, their preferences. So they'll get outputs based on that as well. So, but we're still going to have to watch it and supervise it and make sure it doesn't go down some rabbit holes, because it is not thinking. It is never thinking. It is a probabilistic word matching thing that looks like it's seeking, gives the illusion of thinking, gives the illusion it's provided a Māori review, gives the illusion it's clever at this, but it's only word matching. And if you're not watching it closely and you get too tied down, you end up with just a whole lot of spaghetti. So that's what I need to supervise is when people start talking about it, it's doing this, and it's got a personality. It makes me really nervous. Remember, this is nothing but probabilistic random word matching, and it gives the illusion of thinking. So we've got to watch that limit of how much we expect it to do. Don't expect a hammer to be a screwdriver.
So look, that's brilliant. That's a good cautionary note to end on. Thank you, Karl and Kololo, for your wise words and your presentations this afternoon. Just stress again for any of you that are not Heidi users at the moment, please go along, sign up. Collaborative Aotearoa or Health Accelerator websites links to how you can sign up to using Heidi. So get into it. I'll just close the session with a short karakia, and otherwise thank you all, and I hope the rest of your day goes well. So kia whakairia te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia ture ki whakataha ai, kia ture ki whakataha ai. Humie hui e, tākie. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.